So glad you agree with my opinions. That is, after all, what they are for. Long day. And it's got dark. Must be dinner time. Don't know what that is. Mustard. Place contents in half a cup. That must be soup. That's a complete meal. How am I going to feed myself? Oh my god, it's nearly dinner time. Oh god. Okay, how am I going to do this? Vegetables. Bacon. Pepper. Beef. Frozen. Doesn't matter. Vegetables. Mushroom pizza. Rotate the pizza. Doesn't. Beef can't go next to the bacon. Doesn't matter which way I rotate the pizza. Could eat this $2 coin. Milk. Could I just eat milk? Milk. Onion. Mustard. Rice. Beef. Move everything. The milk. Doesn't matter which way I rotate the milk. The coin. Don't need the coin. Yes! A feast for Odin. 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 You know when sometimes you meet a person and you get their name wrong, you remember it wrong, and then somehow that imprints on your subconscious and you just get their name wrong every time you see them. Why does that happen? Are there any psychologists watching? Can you explain to me why that happens? Because I have been calling A Feast for Odin, A Feast for Odin. I have been calling this game Feast of Odin for 6 months now. I don't know why this is I can't. A Feast for Odin is a game about feeding Vikings. You start off with a bunch of little Vikings and they make more Vikings, presumably through Viking sex or maybe Viking budding. But it's your job to fill up their Viking bellies, make sure that they're well fed the whole time, but also fill up their Viking homesteads. They're enormous sort of abstract patches of land that need to be, for some reason, completely covered in Viking things, like these little cotton rugs and Viking shirts and Viking treasure and rocks. Just rocks, big, small rocks. There's a lot of rocks in this game. Vikings love their rocks, I don't know why. How do you do this? Very easily. Just go out your front door, enter into a world of possibilities and go to market or get animals or strip mine a mountain or go to someone's house and then knock on the door of the house, and when they open the door of the house you put your foot in the door of the house and you go, it's a raid, and you do a Viking raid and you run in and you get their cutlery and you take it home on your ship and you put it in a corner and it's just there. If you have a ship, you're probably going to have some ships by the end of the game as well. There are a lot of ships in this game. By the end of A Feast for Odin, by the end of A Feast for Odin, you are going to have ships coming out your fjords. There are going to be some folks out there, probably quite a lot of folks, who already have an idea what to expect from this game. They'll recognise the art style and they'll recognise the name on the box. Uwe Rosenberg has designed a couple of really very seminal games that use a similar sort of mechanic that's being used here and that have helped to keep that mechanic, that idea, hip and in vogue for quite a few years now. The games I'm talking about are Agricola and Caverna, and the mechanic, the idea, is something called worker placement. But A Feast for Odin, what is worker placement? Tell me. The ever-popular mechanic of worker placement gives everybody a certain number of abstract units of people or workers, and then a kind of a spreadsheet of possible tasks that those units can be sent to do, usually by just plopping them down on top of the thing to claim it. And these are usually initially very mundane things. It's like having a staff and shouting at them to be like, you go and cook dinner, and you go and get some wood, and you go and make some more people by yourself. The idea being that you're scrabbling around for resources, but gradually you build a kind of an infrastructure, a mini economy that gives you more workers to place on more tasks, to get more stuff, to just be better. However, this is also primarily the way that everybody in this game actually interfaces, through this sort of act of choice, but also denial, where you claim a thing and other people can't do it. It's like being an English person at the bank quietly, rudely shuffling to the front of the line so that you get service next, or happening to be in just the right spot so that when the bus turns up you can be the first person getting on. Not everybody wants to be a rude English person barging their way to the front of the line. Another game by Uwe Rosenberg that's not quite so well known but which really pleasantly surprised me last year is Patchwork, an apparently simple game of two players trying to fill up a board as completely as possible while both snatching away pieces that the other might need. It makes sense that he had this idea of these two games meeting up and, you know, enjoying some wine together and...
Oh, hello Agricola, it's a big honor to meet you. You have influenced so many games throughout the years for the being so tough, so wooden, so complex, and yet so full of design and more, and also natural resources. Well, thank you, Patchwork. That is very kind of you to say. Dankeschön, because I actually admire you and the way you're so approachable and accessible, and yet also so deeply thoughtful. You remind me that every decision matters. Enough of talk. Let us go somewhere where we can intermingle our components.
Okay, just keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. Oh, it's a game. Here is your stress-inducing player board, your Viking homestead, which initially is completely empty, covered with -1 symbols, because that's the amount of victory points that you are losing right now because you haven't put anything down to cover them up. You loser, you! Here is your Viking hall across the top of the board, which is full of all the Viking spaces that you'll need to Viking fill with Viking food to feed these people. And here are those Vikings right now on another player board having an intense conversation about what sort of things they should do, because, oh my God, this is all the possible things that they can go and do in the game. Has Rosenberg, I cannot fit this in shot. Has Rosenberg gone crackers? Has he gone crackers for Odin? Not quite, actually, no. Everything is divided into rows and columns, sort of like a weird medieval tax end of year breakdown summary thing. But like tax summary things, it sort of actually makes sense after a while. You have these rows of themed tasks, so everything along this row is to do with building a ship, or everything along this row is to do with going to market. And then the columns divide up how complex the tasks are, which is how many Vikings you need to send to do them. Sending a Viking to market to get like some beans just needs 1 Viking. Whereas as you move further across and you get into elaborate whaling and things like this, you need to send multiple Vikings, 3 or 4 Vikings. 4 Vikings, that is going to be a big chunk of your workforce. So you'd better be sure this is something that works for you personally and is a reward that is worth all that investment of time. Although that said, these rows also give you an extra special bonus, which is you get to draw cards from a special deck that give you, so some of them are one-shot abilities, some are end-of-game abilities, some of them also give you victory points. They're a little extra incentive to go out there and do some of the more complex things to get your engine working harder. Look, you can be furrier. You can be furrier. This is your ticket to a lot of stuff. There is a lot of stuff in this game, and this is where I have to bust out the component trays that you're going to spend at least half an hour like sorting and filling. They come with the game, but you're not going to have a quick time putting everything in them. There's some sheep and cows down in here, food, meat, flax, different animal skins, some silk, treasure, swords, different shirts, chests, different treasure, milk, cutlery that I talked about earlier. Over here we've got some peas and beans, some more meat, dead whale, whale bones, whale carcasses, whale oil, bags of natural resources, wood, ships, multiple different ships that you can make, iron, rocks. Vikings love their rocks. All of this being stuff that you can get in the game if you want to, although you don't necessarily need all of it. So you're placing workers, you're placing Vikings, maybe you're placing a Viking in a market. You're spending a gold piece that you previously earned to get a couple of fish. That's good. The fish will slide down your Viking table, covering up spaces to show how many people they feed. But oh no, I can't put two foods of the same type next to each other. That's not allowed because of Viking dietary restrictions. I don't know, so I have to find some way to cover all these spots and feed people. Except also what's going to happen is gradually more Vikings will be born and more spots will be exposed. Similarly, I can send Vikings off with some of the raw materials I collected to make things. Two Vikings can make a shirt or a piece of clothing or something, and then you have a piece of clothing that goes in your homestead, represents a nice shirt that you have, maybe hangs in your closet. Oh look, it's covering up some space. Those are fewer points that you're losing. You're less of a Viking loser. However, there's certain rules about what you can place here as well. Blue special items, which are the highest quality items, the toughest to make or to earn, can go anywhere and touch anything. Similar for special grey items. However, green things can't touch other green things. It's the Viking way. So you have to find creative ways to sort of do a Nordic Tetris, which is an exciting ongoing challenge because it's very difficult to plan this ahead. Worker placement is, on the other hand, I like this. There's a huge variety of things that happen on this board. There are so many choices, and it's very much about thinking about whether you are going to invest in a lot of smaller, simpler, minor accomplishments, or whether you might go all in for the one turn. It's not revolutionary, it's evolutionary, and for that I'm happy. But if you've never enjoyed doing this in the past, you're not going to suddenly enjoy doing this now. However, there is another brain-tickling stimulation at the core of Feast of Odin, which is this kind of medieval consumerism. It appeals to that part of our brain that just wants to collect stuff, right? This is a game, as you can see now, full of stuff, and stuff solves most or all of your problems. So here's something else about that stuff, right? You can trade up, upgrade pretty much all of that stuff at some point in the game. Here's a little cabbage, a little 2x2 shaped object in the game that you could feed your Vikings with if you want. However, trade that up, it becomes the next equivalent red item, which is a 2x2 pail of milk. That might be more useful to you. Trade that up and you upgrade it into a bedroll. Very useful for putting in your homestead. Trade that up, turns into a little chest. Look, it's a little chest, same size again. Flip the tokens over. They become something else, potentially more useful. Sometimes, because obviously you can't eat a bedroll. The point is, although this stuff solves your problems to some degree, you are forever balancing what you need right now, what you might need for the future, what you should keep as is, and what you should attempt to trade up into something else. The spectre of starvation hangs over your settlement all of the time. It's very easy to get distracted by this constant need to get food, when really you should be investing your Vikings in more interesting things and more progressive things, like sending them up mountains to go, I can't remember where it is, sending them up a mountain to go and get resources like wood or rocks. Vikings fucking love their rocks, because eventually you will be able to turn that wood into a ship, maybe a long ship, or maybe a Viking whaling ship. And perhaps you've also collected some iron, and you can then slot that iron into your whaling ship to get a better boat, like in the film Jaws, where they say, we're going to need a better boat. It's a quote from Jaws, where they catch the whale, like, get that whale, Ahab. That's also a quote from Jaws. A lot of whales in films, actually, like Star Trek Get the Whales, where like Kirk's like, Spock, get the whales. And then Scotty's like, there's whales in here. And you watch it and you're like, two questions. One, what were they thinking? Two, how is this still better than most of the other Star Trek films? Also, if you are ever going to progress from scratching in the dirt, you need to constantly be thinking at least a couple of moves ahead, grabbing investments for the future, and then finding ways with the increasing number of Vikings to cash those into larger amounts of food, larger amounts of stuff. I actually want to stick with whaling for just a little bit longer for quite serious reasons, because it's one of several things that you can do along with hunting, setting snares, raiding, plundering, that that allow you to take a risk, something that's unusual in this flavour of game. You see, what you're trying to do when you raid or when you go whaling or whatever is hit a certain number by rolling dice and then investing some of the resources that you've acquired. And when I say things like that, I mean like you go whaling, you send a whaling boat. Maybe it's a better whaling boat because it had some iron on, or maybe you actually send multiple whaling boats. Or you go raiding in a longship, or it's an upgraded longship because you've added some iron which represents more weapons. And also occasionally investing special weapon cards which are regularly given throughout the game. And you get to roll 3 times, and it's up to you whether you stick with the number you've rolled and then burn some resources to reach the value that you should reach, or whether you sort of throw that away and roll again and hope you do better than last time, in which case the 9 is a heck of a lot better than a 3. This is your route to getting all... Oh, look at that treasure. Your route to getting all kinds of treasures and some of the very special, unique items in the game. And it's also just different. It is a different flavour of challenge, and it adds a sense of friction, and it's fair in an interesting way. If you send 3 or 4 Vikings away to perform a complex raid or hunting and it doesn't work, you get, usually in most cases, 2 or 3 of those Vikings coming back. You took a risk. If you failed, you don't lose everything. You still have a chance to do something else with those Vikings on that turn, and that's reasonable. You've probably noticed by now there's a bunch of little kind of arcane symbols on your player board as well, on your homestead, and these buildings that I've built with a few sort of raw materials, they have some of these symbols too. These represent bonus goods that you can earn if, as you build out, you surround them. So here I've got some bonus wood that I'm going to earn every turn now because I've legally surrounded this, or some bonus iron, or some bonus rocks. Vikings fucking love their rocks. Similarly, the coins here, as I gradually cover these coins up and expand, my income every turn increases, and coins are really, really useful. They're kind of wild cards that you can invest to get other resources, or you can place them down to fill up little holes. You can actually feed people coins, and at the end of the game, coins are just extra victory points, which is great. Additionally, you'll see here I've decided to buy these extra buildings that are worth a certain number of points, minus however many things remain exposed at the end of the game, because not only am I getting points, but if I can fill up these buildings with stuff, I get more bonus stuff. Look, these buildings as well, I can even actually just put food in them. I'm, for some reason, allowed to put fish in the building, but not, I guess this is outside. I guess here I'm just putting all my stuff outside so everyone can see, like, look, I've got a shirt and a little Viking rock. Love my rocks. In fact, right now, I can put a rock in the garden. Look at my rock, everyone. So you end up with this growing tapestry of choices, things you can potentially do, and also this growing tapestry of stuff, both of which you're increasingly weaving together. You can be the person who decides, actually, I'm going to get a bunch of different buildings and fill them with things. I'm going to be the building person. Or you could not. You could be the person who says, I'm going to get lots of animals and actually use those animal products to get myself more points and expand. Or you could be the hunting person. You can even go exploring and settle. Look, more lands, more borders. You could go to the Faroe Islands where Egyptian rulers are from and claim them. Or Newfoundland, I wonder where that is. Or Shetland. And the thing is, as the game goes along, these actually flip over and new lands become available for claiming, like Bear Island. What pleasures await you on Bear Island? Settling, I should briefly talk about settling, not just claiming new lands, but also settling, whereby you send a ship away, you have too many Vikings, they're too hungry, the ship turns into a colony, the colony slips onto your board, covering up some of those hungry Vikings to represent that people have gone away, and there aren't so many mouths to feed anymore. There's a number of little visual touches like this. There's so much in A Feast for Odin that is very, very visually apparent. The layout of all the worker placement options, the shape of certain things, the way things fit into particular holes. It's just very simple, logical design decisions. So here I am, very, very excited, very happy, talking about this being more accessible than you might have first thought, about it giving so many options, about it being really visually appealing and visually intelligently put together, about it having a cool almanac, about it giving you all sorts of ways to do the things that you might want to do as a Viking person. But I know what you are thinking. You want to cycle around to how I began this, and you are asking me, Paul, what can players actually do to interact with each other in this game? What are A Feast for Odin's unique ways that players can avoid just queue jumping each other? And I will tell you that there aren't any. Occasionally you could be the first person to grab like the English crown, you could be the first person to go to Bear Island or Iceland, or you can be the first person to jump on a space. But the thing is, even in a 4-player game, there are so many spaces, there are so many things you can do in the game, and inevitably people are going to take different approaches, want to do different stuff, that you don't even queue jump that often. If somebody takes something you wanted to do, you can usually find something else almost as good to distract yourself with in the meantime. Of course, as we all play A Feast for Odin a lot more, we'll get better at it, we'll get more efficient at filling up Bear Island with things, at learning better routes for playing the game. Like Formula 1 cars along a track, we'll gradually figure out the best racing line, and we will jostle each other more and more often. We'll know that there are some choices that are just bad at certain points, or some things that are guaranteed to give a better reward later on. And I think that's mitigated somewhat by the game still having an element of risk in certain choices, and I think it's also mitigated by the fact that so much gives you points. You can change direction, change your focus of investment, and still get some reward out of it. I mean, this is the first time I've ever got one of these houses. It has a little rock garden. For some reason I get points for putting rocks outside my house. Vikings f***ing love rocks. Look, so here's the thing, here's the point I'm getting to. It costs $100 or equivalent, probably a lot more if you live somewhere where games aren't easy to get hold of. And it's your decision whether you want to spend that $100 on this very focused experience, or whether you would rather invest 2 lots of $50 into other games that are probably way more playful. Historians now think that Vikings were probably doing a lot of their raids not actually to get plunder or to get food or to get stuff like this, probably just to get more people, probably to breed or take slaves. And well, thank heavens you don't do that in A Feast for Odin. You do end up then as, like, if you don't play it solo, which by the way is quite good, you do end up as just like 2, 3, 4 very lonely, unsociable Vikings, largely self-interested in what you're doing. Is that what you want? It might be. Oh, 10 years ago now, 10 years ago, oh my god. 10 years ago now, Agricola was one of the games that really got me back into modern board gaming. It was a real motivator for me. I've kind of fallen out of love with it since. Now for me it seems too harsh and too limited, and there are certain paths of play that you kind of have to follow, certain things you should do. A couple of years back I was much more excited about Caverna, and for a while Quinns was, until he wasn't. But for me now, A Feast for Odin does that thing better than both and effectively makes them obsolete. I think it is more accessible. I think it plays faster and tighter. Excuse me, I'm really sorry. Hello? Shit. Je suis no pour liver here. Ça va? J'aime la confiture. Où est le métrolus? Bye! 3 points for you. 3 points. Where does this go? It lives in there. 1. Clearly, I love this game. And it's done something a bit special for me as well. You may have noticed over the last few years, I've played quite a few lighter games, reviewed quite a few lighter games, enjoyed a lot of social games, enjoyed dexterity games more than I ever have before. And I thought my tastes were just changing. I thought it was just a case of the things that I liked were different to what they used to be. And like Al Pacino in that film about Wales, I thought I was out and A Feast for Odin pulled me back in. And I'm so glad that it has. It's made me so excited about this kind of experience again. So 2, clearly we recommend it. We thoroughly recommend A Feast for Odin. It is pretty much the best at what it does. It is the best Rosenberg game. It is the ultimate evolution of the Rosenberg Pokemon. 3, obviously you know this by now, but I'm going to state this again. If you don't like this sort of thing, if you never liked it before, you are not going to like it now. There isn't enough here that's different. There's just more. There are, and I think this is entirely valid, there are lots of people who are going to continue to enjoy playing games sort of together, where they're mostly sort of pruning their own bonsai tree privately and occasionally brushing shoulders with each other. And that's okay. Your gaming evening can be an experience of you playing a game and also talking about a person that you think is cute, or what the best kind of dog is, or what was on the news today. And then going, look, I did a better job of laying out a farm than you did, well done. This is not for everyone. By being so good at what it is, it finds its niche and it sits in it and it says, come over here, look at my fucking rocks.